Hey everybody, welcome back to HemingwayLand.com, your source for quality, affordable land in the state of New Mexico. So we're going to do something a little different today. Normally we do property-specific videos. This is going to be a subdivision-specific video. If you're clicking on this video right now, if you're watching this, you're most likely interested in property in Socorro County and property in Rio Grande Estates, or you're interested in land free of zoning restrictions. In which case, what I would tell you is that we have had a lot of success in the past selling land out here, so it's my intention moving forward to treat this subdivision as we've treated some others in the state and just sort of have a revolving door of inventory. It's my intention to buy 50 lots out here, wait till maybe half of them sell, and then try to buy another 50, so on and so forth. So because I anticipate we're always going to have land in this region, because I anticipate we're always going to have a spreadsheet of properties both sold and available in this region, I want to have a video that we can stick on each of these listing pages that sort of introduces the uninitiated, introduces a potential buyer to everything they would need to know about owning land out here, whether you plan to use it recreationally as a campsite every couple months or you want to start building out here. So I will get into this video how you can kind of compare and contrast these. If we've got 50 listings, live at once, how do you know which 1 acre piece of dirt is better than some other 1 acre piece of dirt? I'll talk about how you can compare and contrast those. But for the most part, this video will be just as a sort of introduction to the region. So with all that said, let's do as we always do. Come down here on the listing page, click on the GPS coordinates down here. They're available on every listing page. And when you click them, they will bring the specific property up on Google Maps. Now, this one sits right here, but we're not going to talk about specifics. We're going to talk about everything one needs to know about the subdivision. So, for the uninitiated who don't know Socorro County, you probably know Albuquerque. You know it's the biggest city in the state, and it's up here in the north-central part of the state. Socorro County is just south of Albuquerque, and if we right-click and measure distance, you can see that these properties sit roughly about 40 miles south of the city. So, what's nice about this is that you're very close here to the I-25 corridor. We've had a lot of buyers buy land out here who live in Albuquerque and who work in Albuquerque, and they're tired of seeing their rent go up every year, whether it's apartment rent, home rent, or mobile home. And so they want a piece of land they can call their own, where they're not going to be subject to the whims of a landlord, to inflation, to rising rent costs, etc. They want a piece of land. They're going to come down here and start building, but they still work up in the city. So the nice thing about this area, first off, is that you're going to have easy access to Albuquerque. 40 miles on the I-25 at a 70, 75 mile an hour speed limit. It's probably more like a 30-minute drive, realistically. If you're going to continue working up here, building on the weekends, it's going to be easy commutes back and forth. Additionally, if you're going to keep driving back and forth every day, maybe you don't want an hour drive, an hour commute time every day, 5 days a week. Maybe you don't like driving that much. You're going to have the benefit of the fact the Rio Metro rail line sits down here in nearby Belen. You can access that. It's a little 10-minute drive up to Belen. You park your car there, and you can take the train all the way up to Albuquerque. You can take it all the way as far north to Santa Fe, and a couple points in between. Point being, these commutes are going to be easy. It's going to be easy for you to do that. So if you live and work up there, number one, or number two, if you just want to go up there on the weekends, take advantage of whatever, the nightlife or, some concerts, sporting events, so on and so forth. Now, the other thing that should be noted is if you're going to be living or owning land down here, the nearest sort of big town is Belen. Over here in Belen, you're going to have access to things like schools, churches, and medical. If you have kids, they're going to school. If you need to go to the doctor, you're going to be able to find it over here. If you want to go to church, there's going to be a lot of churches over here. Additionally, groceries and supply runs you're going to be able to do in Belen. There's a Walmart in Belen. There's a super Walmart up here in Los Lunas, just a little bit further up the road. And there's a Walmart down here in Socorro, the city of Socorro, in Socorro County. So if you do come out here and you start building, you're going to have easy access to all of those things. With all that said, let's talk about this specific subdivision. So again, this is called Rio Grande Estates, and the area that it occupies is pretty much all this area that you see right here, a little bit south of the 60, and then all of this like this. So this is a region where a developer came in roughly the 50s or 60s. They bought up thousands of acres of land, and they chopped everything up and then resold it. And one of the nice things about this area, well, first of all, let's say this. One of the nice things about this area is that Socorro County has no zoning office. They have no countywide zoning ordinance. And how do we know that? Because if you go to their government website and you read here, you'll see Socorro County does not have a zoning or permitting ordinance. At this time, there are no county regulations or restrictions on the use of real property. Blah, blah, blah. And what that means is that you're going to be able to do things out here that you can't do in other parts of New Mexico. This is the big advantage. This is the big selling point. This is why a lot of buyers like this land, is because you can do things out here like, hey, I want to build a tiny home. I want to build a shipping container home. And because those are unconventional things, and a lot of counties, cities, municipalities will zone against that type of building, you'll be able to do them down here. Additionally, if you're a little more laid back, if you're saying, hey, I just bought an RV, I just spent multiple thousands of dollars on an RV, I want a place I can go camp, I want to go place I can go park it, where the sheriff isn't going to show up and run me off the land after a couple days. That's also something that you're going to have the advantage of being able to do down here. Even if you want to do something unconventional, like, hey, I'm going to build a yurt, I'm going to live out of a yurt, this is also something you can do in this region. Now, one of the really nice things about the subdivision, I was talking about the developer earlier. A lot of developers in New Mexico back in the 50s, 60s, they bought thousands of acres like this, and they chopped it up into pieces of land that ultimately became too small. Quarter-acre, half-acre lots. You've got a subdivision up here in Valencia County that suffers from that will probably remain undeveloped for years and years and decades to come, because they basically made it, well, let me put it to you this way. In the 1970s, New Mexico adopted a sort of uniform environmental law. And a lot of times, if you're trying to buy land in New Mexico, you'll hear this sort of conventional wisdom about you, quote unquote, can't build on land that's under 3/4 of an acre. Now, that's not really the thing. You can build on land that's under 3/4 of an acre. The problem is, if you're going to install a septic system and you're going to install a well, there's certain environmental law that says they have to be yay far apart. And that yay far shakes out to, owning roughly a piece of land about 3/4 of an acre. And if you don't have that amount of property, there are workarounds, but those workarounds tend to either be permitting nightmares or prohibitively expensive. So that's why you'll hear this conventional wisdom about you can't build. Point is, you can build. If you've got the money, if you've got the time and the resources and the inclination, you can build. But a lot of subdivisions were chopped up into quarter-acre, half-acre lots. And so, if you're buying a half-acre lot in some other part of the state, there are things you can't do there that you can do in a region like this, simply because the developer had the foresight to at least give people enough land to, build a comfortable home on, right? So all of the lots in these thousands and thousands of acres of land are all 1-acre lots. So the benefit here is not only that you could do whatever you want, but that there's not going to be the extra expense or the extra sort of permitting nightmare of trying to get something done just because, well, I want to have a well and I want to have a conventional septic system. You're not going to run into those problems. Now, let's talk about some things. Let's talk about what this region actually looks like. So number one, on each of our listing pages, we're going to have photos taken from the property. Traditionally, we get about 40 photos taken from each property. Because I had my photographer go out and shoot about 50 of these at once, we're only going to have 4 photos from each lot. That being said, the topography out here does not change all that much. This is what the roads look like in most parts of this subdivision. It's a fairly arid, dry climate. There's not a lot of overgrowth. What you'll find in, let's say, if you see the arroyo going through here, if you're buying land close to the arroyo, probably want to go out and scout that first. Make sure you can actually drive to the property. It's not going to be too difficult on your car. But realistically, when you see land like this out here, this is not going to be hard for you to drive through. It's not going to be overgrown. It's not going to be too muddy or whatever. Pretty much any vehicle is going to be able to reach most all these properties. But I would just be a little cautious about land close to the arroyos down here. Whatever the case, this is what the roads look like. And you can see things like what the neighbors look like. Some neighbors out here have respectable looking home sites. Some neighbors, because of that zero planning zoning thing, will have, they've parked a school bus and they've parked 20 dilapidated cars no one's ever going to be able to move, and they've got, 15 dogs out there that bark all night. This is one of the drawbacks of being in an area that doesn't have those sorts of restrictions on noise or on, quote unquote rubbish disposal. That's something that you want to consider when you're buying property out here. But additionally, from this, you can see exactly what each of these pieces of property looks like. He's got, 4 shots, probably 1 in each direction. And of course, you can also see the nearby Manzano Mountains, which are some really pretty views that you're going to wake up to every day, owning or just camping on land out here. Blah, blah, blah. So on each of these listing pages, we'll have 4 property-specific images. We'll also, of course, have our normal Google Earth imagery, the general size, shape, location of the property. And then we'll have the plat maps. Everybody loves the plat maps. So you'll have the sort of bigger view, and then you will have the more zoomed-in view of the plat map of where exactly this specific piece of property sits. Honestly, most buyers are going to have one of 2 questions. Number 1, what's the road like? And number 2, how far away is power? So over here on each listing page, first off, all of this is going to be the same on each one of these listing pages. This is not going to change much, and it's pretty much everything I just discussed in this point of the video. But then we're going to have the property-specific notes, and these notes will first of all have to do with road conditions, just a general, how are the roads? Are they in good condition? Are they, can I do it in any kind of vehicle, or do I need a big car to do it? And then power. Is it at the lot line? Is it 0.2 miles away, half a mile away? How far is it? So realistically, those are the only two big questions that we're going to get, so we try to address them on each of these listing pages. Again, that information will probably be reiterated in the headline. If there's power at the lot line, we're going to say it. And additionally, it will be reiterated down here as far as the condition of the roads and proximity to power. Now, we've got a couple resources on this page I want to make you guys aware of. So if you want to do some research, if you want to find out, hey, this land looks great, I want to buy it, but realistically, what's it going to cost me to do some of the things I want to do? Here are some resources that will help you with that. Number one, PNM. PNM is the local utility company that services this region. You can reach out to them and you can say, hey, I'm looking to buy a piece of property. It's in Rio Grande Estates. It's roughly a little bit north of Highway 60 out in Socorro County. You guys have got a power line roughly, whatever, 0.2 miles away. What is it going to cost for me to get that extended out to my property? I want to buy a piece of land. I want to get hooked up to the grid. What's that going to cost? These are the people you want to talk to in advance. If you call us, we'll have no idea about this. So it's best to reach out to an entity like this. Additionally, we also have the Office of the State Engineer. If you're going to drill a well out here, a residential well, this is where you get the permit to do that. These are the people who control all water rights in the state. Now, a lot of people will ask about the water table in this region. Hey, what's the water table like? Here's the only thing I can tell you. It's difficult to give people a precise read on a water table. It's something I'm very reticent to even quote. I'll leave it at that. It's something I'm reticent to quote because I can't give you a precise number. Additionally, water table, usually the further down you drill, the more expensive it becomes. So what I recommend to people, call local well drillers in the region. Say, hey, I'm looking to buy some land in Rio Grande Estates, just north of Highway 60. What can you tell me about general costs to get a well drilled out there? Here's the one thing that I would point out. When I see this many home sites in the region, and we just showed you a photo of a pretty nice home site that sits, close to this piece of land, one can assume that when you see this many people living out here, there's probably water. And, I'm sure all these people are delightful people, but they're not, millionaires and billionaires, right? So most likely there's a lot of wells out here that these people were able to afford. And if that's the case, then you'll probably be able to afford it as well. But again, this is not something you just want to take guy on the internet's word for. I would say call local well drillers out there and ask them realistically, how deep or shallow is the water table? How far down do I have to drill? What's the cost per foot of drilling? These are the questions you want to ask. And finally, well, no, not finally. It's just the Office of the State Engineer, well drillers, and PNM. Those are the people who I would talk to about that sort of thing. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, with all that said, if these are properties that you guys are interested in, I want to talk about the two purchase options that we have up here. You can click either one of these Buy Now buttons. And first, let's say you want to buy it for cash. You've got the whole amount. It's $1,500 plus a $150 doc prep fee, so $1,650 total. You click this button right here. It's going to take you to this secure checkout. Going to give us a couple pieces of information that we need. What name do you want on the deed? What's the tax address? Where's Socorro County going to send their annual $20 tax bill? Very affordable. Agree to the terms of service, and on the next page we'll ask for credit or debit card information. Now, just so you understand, once you give us the money, we're the owner of the property. Once you give us the money, as far as we're concerned, you're the owner of the property. You want to go out there tonight and start camping or doing whatever and, knock yourself out. Realistically, however, it's going to be about 3 weeks before you have that deed in your hands. The way the process works, within 24 hours, we're going to have a deed drafted. We'll email it to you. Once you approve it, we'll autograph it, notarize it, mail it off to the county. The county records it. They'll forward it on to you. So again, about 3 weeks before the hard copy is in your hand. But practically speaking, again, it's yours to do with as soon as you give us money. Number one. Number two, let's say you don't have all the money up front and you want to do payments. Click this button right here. It's going to take you also to a secure checkout. We ask for $500 down, and then we're going to ding your credit card for $150 every 30 days. Now, I know this checkout looks confusing. There's no other way for us to write this, unfortunately, but everybody always asks, wait, so am I putting down $500 or $650? What am I putting down? You're only putting down $500. You'll get charged $150 every 30 days, okay? Again, we ask the same questions here, legal name for deed, tax address, so on and so forth. Once you agree to the terms of service, on the next page, you're under credit or debit card information. Put down $500. Now, let's be clear. if you make a payment on the property, we don't deed it into your name until all the payments have been made. So, you know, you can pay it off slowly, you can pay it off fast, whatever, but only until all the payments are in will we deed the property into your name. And you can read a little bit more down here about that in the financing option. Now, one thing I want to point out, we have only prepayment incentives in our land contracts. We don't have prepayment penalties. So if you hit the lottery 2 weeks after you put down the 500, we're not going to charge you the full purchase price of this. We're going to charge you, you know, what is within that time frame. And actually, if you click on this thing right here, it'll bring up a sort of generic version of one of our standard land contracts, which you can read through and you can inspect prior to putting down that $500. But one of the first things you'll notice here is under purchase price and terms. If you pay this thing off as slowly as possible, it'll be $2,600, right? It'll be $500 down, $150 a month for whatever, 14 months. But if you pay this thing off in 3 months, we'll give you a 90-day same as cash option. So we won't charge you more than the cash price of $1,650. So maybe you're looking at a property, you really like it, you've got $500 now, and you'll probably have the rest of it in 2 or 3 months. This is probably the way to go with this. But I would encourage you, you know, before you give us any money, read the contract over, familiarize yourself with it, make sure you're comfortable with what we're writing here, make sure you're comfortable with the terms of this. Again, it's a generic version of our standard contract, but this is what we're going to provide for you, again, within 24 hours of that deposit that you put down. With all this said, I just want to point out one final thing here in this video, guys, which is that we have a master list here of all of our Rio Grande Estates properties. If you click on this, it'll bring up a spreadsheet. Now, the blue properties are sold, the white properties are available. We're going to continue to update this as time goes on. We're not going to delete anything from this. We're going to leave this up. But one of the benefits with this is that if you don't want to go listing page by listing page through the website, you can always compare and contrast these properties simply by clicking on the hyperlink GPS coordinates. Click on this, it's going to bring up coordinates right here. You click these and it'll show you where a property sits on the map, much as I showed you with this specific property, right? So you bring up 2 windows and one property sits over here and one property sits over here, and you say, oh, I like this property better. That's how you'll be able to do that. Additionally, we also have notes here. First off, the major note is about power. The major note is about proximity of power to the subject property. This is one that a lot of you guys have requested in previous spreadsheets that we've done of properties in Taos County or Rio Rancho Estates. We've made this note here for you guys, so it's easier to kind of compare and contrast and understand the difference in these properties. Additionally, we also have sort of the legal information on the lot, so you can look this up with the county if you want to, legal description of the property, and then, of course, the purchase price. Additionally, if you only want to navigate these properties through the spreadsheet, we've provided you enough information to do that. If you want to buy them through the spreadsheet, you could do it that way too. So the cash price that I talked about earlier, $1,500 plus $150 doc prep. Click this button, it'll get you there. Or you know, just putting down whatever the $500 down, $150 a month. Click this button, it'll get you there too. Anyway, with all that said, I hope this was informative. I hope you learned a lot about Rio Grande Estates. If you have any additional comments, I'd refer you to the Master Rio Grande Estates listing page. We're going to have an FAQ on there that will educate you more on that region. It'll answer a lot of questions that I know I'm going to get about it. Or just leave us a comment here on YouTube. Shoot us an email, support@hemingwayland.com. Or, as always, give us a call. Pick up the phone, 702-919-7170. Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it. And, as always, see you in the next video.